I read it.
Yeah, and it's a good book. I recommend it. Okay, it's about 93 pages or so. 1844 made simple. Well, in this little book here, can you see?
Yeah, I have that. I have that one too. Great book.
Who's Afraid of the Judgment? It's come out with another cover as well. Okay, and if you go to page page 62, I start 1844 in 10 steps. Okay, and guess how long it takes to get through those 10 steps? 6 pages. 6 pages. So that is the shortest presentation in print, is 6 pages in this book. Okay, now what I'm interested in is having it simple enough for people to be able to understand, everybody, not just the minister, but everybody, and to be able to share it. And there's a reason for that, because if you can arrive at 1844, you show that we're living in the last phase of salvation history before Jesus comes. It's really important for who we are and for what our mission is. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. Okay, but now I boiled it down to not 10 points there, but 7 points. Okay, so this is even simpler than that.
So you narrowed it down more.
Yeah. So 7 steps. Let's start with the first one. And the first one is in the next slide. First, we'll summarize it. Step 1, the 2,300 days are much longer than literal days. Step 2 is the, okay, you can just go along with me here. Step 2, Daniel 9 explains Daniel 8. Then step 3, the 70 weeks begin in 457 BC. Then step 4, the 70 weeks of years. Step 5, the 490 years are the first segment of the 2,300 days. Step 6, the 2,300 days represent 2,300 years, beginning in 457 BC. And then step 7, the 2,300 years end in 1844. So that's where we're headed. So let's go to the first one. The next slide is going to give us step 1. The 2,300 days are longer than literal days. Okay, if evenings, mornings, because the Hebrew is Erev Boker, which is literally evening, morning, so 2,300 evening, morning, then the sanctuary will be justified, is what the Hebrew says. If it's literal days, 2,300 days divided by 360 or 365, it's about 6 1/3 literal years, right? So if you're in Daniel 8:14, which is answering the question that's in verse 13, how long is all this bad stuff going to happen, including taking away the tamid, the regular worship of God, of God's by His people? How long shall be none of the translations are good. How long shall be the vision, not concerning, but colon there, concerning the, not daily, but regular, the word sacrifice isn't in the Hebrew, the desolating rebellion, it is, Pesha Shomem in Hebrew, and then to give both the sanctuary, that's not what it is, it's to give the transgression or the desolating transgression, and the host to be trampled underfoot. How long is all this stuff going to be? Until the end of all of this bad stuff. Because Daniel was concerned about when the temple is going to be restored, because it was destroyed by the Babylonians in his day, right? Here comes the answer. Here's the ending point. Under 2,300 days, that's evening, morning in Hebrew, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. So is it literal days? 6 1/3 literal years. Let's go back to the PowerPoint. And there, I point out, next bullet point there, it covers the entire period of Daniel's vision. From right back in the beginning of the chapter, verses 1 and 2, you get, here's the chazon, the vision, and the 2,300 is until when is the end of the chazon, the vision. So it covers all of that. So we have all the kings of Media and Persia. We know that from verse 20. We have all the kings of Greece. We know that from verse 21. Plus the succeeding power of the little horn. And many of those monarchs individually ruled much longer than 6 1/3 literal years. So these 2,300 days cover a much longer period than 6 1/3 literal years. So therefore, it cannot be literal days. Does that make sense?
Are you
right.
saying it's because it's because of the ram and the goat included in the time prophecy? It's too
Correct. And they represent
too long.
the history is too long. It goes all the way through the time of Medo-Persia, the time of Daniel, all the way through the Greek era, and then into the following era, and then an era after that, right? And even if it were just the Persian era itself, it doesn't work chronologically. It covers way, way too much. So therefore, we know it's not literal days. It must be something else. Okay.
Quick question: Is there a version of scripture that you recommend for that explains this clearly?
All of the versions are mistaken, because that is in this verse, particularly verse 13. And I could explain to you the details. I wrote an article on it once for a volume dedicated to Dr. Jacques Ducan. They have the syntax wrong, and so in the Hebrew, and it if you read the ESV, that's pretty good. The English Standard Version, that's pretty good, but they all include burnt offering, which is not there, the regular burnt offerings, and then they put concerning the, and that's wrong because in Hebrew it's
Honestly, you shouldn't buy this book because once you do, you'll never look at your medicine cabinet the same way again.
It's not a construct, which they're interpreting it as a Hebrew construct. I'd have to explain that kind of syntax. So I published my own translation of it in an article that I'm going to show the reference to that in the end of the next PowerPoint. And there you can see my translation of that.
Okay. Perfect.
So let's go back to the PowerPoint. And okay, so let's keep going. The next slide here. Okay, so the vision covers many centuries, too much history to be literal days. Let's keep going. Until the sanctuary is cleansed or justified. The word means justified, which could be legally cleansed. Then step number 2. Now we know already from step 1 that they're not literal days, but step 2 is Babylon was conquered by Medo-Persia, and Daniel 9 explains Daniel 8. Now, in the beginning of Daniel chapter 9, Daniel is studying the books, the scrolls of particularly Jeremiah, in which he's finding that Babylon was going to have 70 years of domination over God's people, and then it was going to end. Okay, so here already in Daniel 9 verse 1, this has already happened because Medo-Persia has taken over. And so Daniel is very interested in what's going to happen. Now he knows from the previous chapter that there's these 2,300, but he doesn't know what the units of time are, and he doesn't know when it begins. That's the big problem. He doesn't know when it begins. And so he's really frustrated because here he is in chapter 9. We're already to the next great empire. In Daniel 2, there was the head of gold, which is Nebuchadnezzar's Neo-Babylonian empire. And then there's the chest and arms of silver, which is Medo-Persia. That's the ram in Daniel 8. And we're already into that. Where's the end of Babylon? When do we go home? When is the temple going to be restored? And he's really disturbed over that. And so the angel Gabriel comes to explain to Daniel the vision. Verses 20 and following comes to explain to Daniel the vision. Now, there's no vision in Daniel 9. Daniel's been praying a long prayer for his people, the temple and the city of Jerusalem, but there's no vision in Daniel 9. So it must be the vision of the previous chapter. And Daniel is really upset because he's fasting, sackcloth and ashes, all that kind of stuff. And why would he be doing that? If Daniel believed that it's only 6 1/3 literal days before the temple is restored, his people go back home, why would Daniel be upset? If I were to tell you that there's going to be peace in the Middle East in 6 1/3 literal years, is that good news or bad news?
Sounds like great news.
Yeah,
That's
a great
amazingly
point.
good news. So
I recommend rewinding the last minute. Let this sink in. This is really key because this is something that's easily missed. Because we're thinking about it from our position historically and interpreting it. It's a problem with futurism too. We have to realize how would these things make sense to people when it was written to the original audience? And then how the first century would interpret these. Would it make sense? If all, for instance, futurism doesn't work because if Daniel 9 is talking about an event that's after Christ, this was written to the original audience of the first century and before. If Daniel 9:27 was somehow about the Antichrist, it would have made zero sense to the original audience. Likewise here. Daniel's living in a time where the temple had already been destroyed and they're in captivity in Babylon. Key point. And now he's getting visions about the temple being desolated. The temple didn't exist when he heard this prophecy. Again, if you don't understand what I'm saying, think about it. He's in captivity praying for the temple to be restored, and now he's getting a vision about the temple being desolated for a certain amount of time. He's like, the temple doesn't even exist. If you don't grasp what I'm saying, rewind it and think it through. This ends the debate.
Why is Daniel so upset? Is he just a chronic melancholy? Life is fraught with happiness. Life is fraught with happiness. Oh, no, Daniel was not a preterist. Daniel didn't believe, like the preterists, that these are literal days like the preterists believe. Daniel himself was not a preterist. He believed there was a much longer period of time. And what is he worried about? He's worried about that because his people are so wicked. God has thrown the 70 weeks prophecy of Jeremiah in the shredder. That's gone. It's replaced now by 2,300, this long period. And he can see all the stuff that's happening. He can see how long it is. And we're going to have to wait for all that length of time. Oh, God, have mercy on us. We've sinned. Our fathers have sinned. When is it going to end? And the angel Gabriel comes to explain to him about this vision. And what he wants to know is in the near future, what's going to happen. And so the angel Gabriel gives the 70 weeks prophecy, 70 weeks of years. Now let's go on with the PowerPoint. So 70 years of captivity were ending, but the Daniel 8 vision predicted a series of empires. Keep going. Daniel was upset and God changed his mind. God understood that days refer to much longer units than literal days.
Hi, there is Dr. Chad Walding, co-founder of Native Path. We look at collagen differently than other supplement companies. It's so much more.
Gabriel came to explain the mar'eh, the vision, and this is the expression that's used earlier in chapter 8 regarding the 2,300 days. There's no vision in Daniel 9, so it explains Daniel 8. And this is the step number 2, to recognize that Daniel 9 explains Daniel 8. With these 70 weeks of years, which are cut off, they're cut off. Now, the translations say determined or decreed, but that word hatak is only used once here in the whole Hebrew Bible and elsewhere in its usage in Rabbinic Hebrew. And also there's a cognate in Ugaritic, I believe. It means to cut something off from a longer segment. And by an extended meaning, it can come to mean determined or decreed. Both meanings work here. But this is a segment cut off from a longer period. And we're going to find it's cut off from the first part of it. Because that.
In other words, the vision in Daniel 9, which is explaining Daniel 8, has a portion cut off. And if you believe Jesus is the Messiah, and everybody understands that the 70 weeks here are meant to be years or 490 years, because that's 490 days, 70 weeks. That means the vision or the prophecy in Daniel 9 is a portion cut off from the larger vision. And the only other vision that's explained this larger is the 2,300 evening mornings. So the 490 years has to be a smaller amount of time than the 2,300, of which the 490 years are the first portion of, or cut off from, what? The mar'eh. What's the mar'eh? From the previous chapter. It's the 2,300 evening mornings. So the 2,300 has to be a larger time period than the 490 years. And the 490 years is exactly what predicted Jesus would come the first time, to the year.
That's what Daniel wanted to know. The first part of this 2,300 years long period. So the 70 weeks, and then other bad stuff happens after that. Okay, so it's cut off, but we're going to get to that. So the step number 3 is, let's go to step number 3. The 70 weeks begin in 457 BC. Okay, and here we have in Daniel 9:24-27, where Gabriel explains about there's going to be 70 weeks that are cut off on behalf of your people, to benefit your people. Okay, and it's going to include,
which, by the way, is the prophecy that brings the new covenant by Jesus showing up and ratifying the covenant, which calls back all the nations.
+7 plus 62 weeks plus 1, that equals 70 weeks. And the 70 weeks would begin when a command to restore Jerusalem would go into effect. And that's in verse 25. So the beginning point of the 70 weeks is in verse 25. Let's keep going. This happened in 457 BC during the 7th year of Artaxerxes. Now, there were 2 previous Persian decrees by Cyrus and Darius I, and they provided for the people to return back to their homeland of Judah and Jerusalem, and also for rebuilding the temple. They didn't say anything about the city. The first Persian decree that said anything about the city was in the 7th year of the reign of Artaxerxes I, and we know exactly when his regnal years were. We have the chronology of the ancient Near East from the time of Nebuchadnezzar's father, Nabopolassar. There was a solar eclipse that was recorded by the Babylonians, and then it's correlated with regnal years of kings. And so Parker and Doberstein, for example, in their chronology of the ancient Near East, have been able to correlate their chronology so precisely it is to the day. We know the day when Nebuchadnezzar officially became the king of Babylon. Wow. And they know exactly when the reign of Artaxerxes I was. It began in 458, and it overlaps our years, and it goes from 458 to 457. So this is a wonderful thing.
I put the video in the private chat, or the comment section. Mary, I don't entertain your comments at this point anymore. No offense. I've seen some of the comments. I know your perspective, and I terribly disagree. I know you're rabidly anti-Adventist here, and that's fine. I don't really have anything to say to you anymore. I don't take you seriously. But you can watch the whole video there. You repeat the same dumb arguments that have been refuted that I've heard before. So I would suggest seeing what Adventists say about people that are the arguments you're making, and watch this whole video and watch my videos about why the days in the prophecies of Daniel and Revelation cannot be literal. And I've posted on that in my community page. You're welcome to watch that or study that, or search my channel for Daniel 8 and Daniel 9 information, which I didn't just read Adventists. I did my own research. Even Adventists don't understand my point of view on a lot of this. But so yeah, thanks for watching. God bless.